Hello dairy keepers, welcome to my channel. Today I would like to start with the conclusion of this video. I'll show you how I made this pair of bezel set French dangle earrings using an Amazonite stone. This is an oval stone, but not really because the top part is narrower than the lower part, the rose cut stone with a flat base and facet crown. The heel diameter is smaller than the maximum girdle diameter, producing a Bombay profile rather than a straight cabochon form. The lower section remains vertical for approximately 3 millimeters from the base before the profile begins to pivot inwards towards the crown. This character makes it harder to set, especially when the heel is narrow. Very often the stone can jiggle no matter how fit the bezel is, which would happen last week with me. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is C and I am a self-taught jewelry maker. You can go ahead and pursue what I was just saying earlier. However, I would like to give you a context. Truth to be told, the footage that I was about to show you is actually a video that was being shot last May 2025. The reason why I did not upload it was because it's a very long video. It took like 3 hours long and I did not have time to edit it. And last week, I was posting a video blog on YouTube Shorts and asking you if you are interested to be watching how I set this bezel set, and a lot of you have voted yes, so it's only fair for me to edit the video and show it to you. Since the video is 3 hours long, I would like to divide it into two parts, where the first part is only how I make the bezel set in this stone, and the second video, it will be the size of the stone is 6 millimeters. So we'll talk about that next week. This being said, if you have seen a lot of small cabochon was being made as a background of the footage of this video, just ignore it. You know that it's going to be up next week. All right. So without further ado, here comes the footage. First, using a divider, I'm going to decide the height of the bezel wall. Adding the thickness of the wire here, I'm using 18 gauge wire. And I don't want it to be too high, not too low. It has to pass the point where the stone starts to pivot. Measuring using the caliper, the height came out around 4.5 millimeters, but I write it 4.4 because I know that I'd rather count it too high. Next, an option, if you want the backing to be thicker, you can use a 16 gauge wire. Using the same way of measuring, the height came out around 4.6 millimeters. For the wall, I'm interchanging using 28 gauge or 26 gauge sheet. Here, it's 26 gauge, I think. So I'm stripping off the plastic after cutting off the bezel, and I very often stripping it off after cutting. That way the rest of the sheet is at least protected. And using the pliers, I make a frame that eventually will envelop the stone. This is what we refer as a bezel wall. I didn't show you how I made the bezel sheet on the smaller ones, but don't worry, this work will be shown on the next week's video. So in order for the bezel to be soldered closed, I want to make sure that both of the sides are flat. So here I'm sanding off the sides and make sure that both of the surface is touching perfectly. There's no gap. And I am doing a fit check, of course, to make sure that it's really tightly fit. And I will also make sure that there's no gap between the two. And at the end, I'm marking the side using Sharpie so I know where to solder. Here I'm preparing for a bulk solder process. If you are curious on how to do the solder detail, I would recommend you to watch my soldering silver video. I will link the detail on the description. All done! Except the bezel for the Amazonite is way too small, it did not fit. So here I'm attempting to enlarge it using a ball punch. This is one of the technique of enlarging the bezel wall. Just want to show you that using this technique can work, although sometimes it cannot. If that's the case, I have to make the bezel wall from scratch again. But this time, it works. Moving on here, I'm marking on the bezel side to differentiate where I will solder the backing in. For the backing, I am using 16 gauge wire, and here is how I create it. It has to have the same exact shape as the stone, not bigger, not smaller. And here I'm using the soldered bezel wall as a template. A lot of adjustment going on, and as you can see, I'm taking my time doing this. Once I've reached the shape that is correct, I'm cutting off the wire and file flat the edges and close it. Now I'm fitting the back of the bezel into the wall and making sure that it fits. If the shaping was correct, then it should fit because these eventually will all be soldered in together. I'm using whatever tools I can to really make it fit. Normally, it's the flat nose pliers. Click! Oof. Next, I'm cutting off the ear wire. I'm grabbing 20 gauge wire and cut 5 centimeters. I know that on the video it is written 4 centimeters, but if I were you, I would do 5. Just in case one of the edges burn, you don't have to cut another 4 centimeters of the ear wire, which happened to me before. Let's go to the soldering block again. This video is 20 times faster than normal. So just to give you a sneak peek on what the next week content would look like. However, don't worry, I will definitely edit it so you don't have to suffer with all the steps. Okay, let's focus on the large bezel now. Before the soldering work, I'm dipping it into this jar filled with borax and water so it look like a paste. I want to make sure that the unsoldered bezel are marinated in it. It serves as a barrier from fire. The only thing that we want to melt is the solder. So sometimes the fire is too strong, so the flux will help protect the silver from melting altogether. Here, as you can see, I'm placing the solder chip one by one, and it can be tricky because the oxygen that comes out of the fire can definitely blow the chip, which is what happened here. Rookie mistake. But fear not, I'm catching up with it by focusing on one. Once the solder all melt, I am going to turn it over and making sure that the solder is melting all the way to the other side. And of course it is. Now I'm taking care of the second bezel using the same technique, putting in the solder chip and fire. This time I have to be careful, and even if the chip is flying, I can always pick it up with my titanium pick. And the last solder work is to attach the dangle. I'm using a third hand and cross lock pinch to help me with this work. By far, this is the trickiest work. I had melted a couple of these. So Be careful when you do that. Always flux a lot. Especially the 20 gauge wire is very thin and without a proper barrier, it will melt like in a second. The soldering work is done. I check the work and put it in the pickle bath. While waiting, I'm cleaning up my bench and normally would watch YouTube or do some brainless work, I guess. Hey, I'm back. I took out the bezel from the pickle bath and it looked okay, but at the back of the bezel, it needs a lot of work, like a lot. Because I'm using a wire. The nature of the wire is round, so obviously the back is not smooth. My job right now is to sand off the texture and make everything smooth. Dairy keepers, the hardest work has begun, which is sanding the bezel. It would be too hard to elaborate in detail today in this video. However, if you are interested, I had made a video specifically for sanding. It's titled Sanding Tutorial. I will put the link on the description below. I spent at least 1 hour on this step, but in the video, it's barely 1 second. Magic, right? The back is beautiful. I did not smoothen out until I finished with the mirror polish, but so far all the deep scratches are gone. And before setting the stone, I'd like to check the bezel wall that if it has an even height all around. I don't have specific technique to do this, just placing it upside down on a flat surface. And since the tabletop is straight, any difference in height will show up right away. The light passes through the shorter parts. And so far, I think they're good. Before the stone is set, I would like to have a final check on the bezel. If it still fit, then I'm good, which it is. And here, very important to sand a thin edge on this bezel. I'm using the slow sandpaper for the work because I can control it better. Let's move on to my favorite part of making these earrings, setting the stone. The only tool that I'm using is this. It comes with a set, I think. The name of the product is Stone Setting Tool Set. The cheapest in the market, don't worry about it. I will definitely take photos of every pieces that comes in the set. If you are curious, let me know in the comment below. The edges, however, have been refined. I sanded the sharp angle to remove the sharp point. So at this point, it will not hurt my bezel wall. Since the stone is large, I do not use any tools to hold the bezel while setting it. What I do here is just holding it with a finger against the V-slot to keep it in place and just push the wall slowly evenly. The last step is to shape the ear wire. And diary keepers, compared to all the work previously, this seems to be a child's play. I will let you watch the video to know how to do it. And here I'm smoothing out the point for comfort wear. Using the burr cup and my power tools, it's faster. And excuse me if I leave the background noise. You have my podcast, my daughter playing with her friends as a background noise. When she grow up one day, I won't be able to have all this noise, so I'm going to cherish it right now. And I'm done, Dairy Creepers. Here is the product shots. They're so pretty, and honestly, I really miss my geraniums. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tune in for the next week's video where I will be doing the same bezel set in French dangle earrings. Instead of one, I will be making 5 of them. in which all of them are around 6 millimeters diameter. It's going to be a lot of work, but hopefully we will be able to learn something from it. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell. Stay creative, be kind to yourself and others, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!